Good morning and welcome to another day in Mae Sot, Thailand. It's Thursday, April 9th, and I think that makes it the 15th day of the state of emergency. And I have to admit that I'm a little bit confused. What I'm confused about is probably the biggest story that's ongoing in my life right now, and that's everything to do with the immigration policy here in Thailand. You know, for foreigners like me with a tourist visa that will soon be expiring, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But first, you know, there's some simple things going on in my life. Give you a quick update. I did go on a run to the local Tesco, and I brought in a whole bunch of food a few days ago. So I've got a week's worth, maybe even 2 weeks worth of food and water here in my room. That was an interesting little trip. Everything at Tesco is still fine. You know, the shelves are fully stocked. Nobody's panic buying. There's no hoarding going on, anything like that. So I just walked to Tesco as I normally do. That's how I get around. And then walked back here to my room. And I'm fully stocked in case. Well, the main reason I did that was because there were some rumors going around that Thailand was going to, just out of the blue, impose a 24-hour-a-day curfew. I don't think they're really going to do that, not for the whole country. They might do it for individual departments or even individual cities. But there was a hint that maybe, you know, there'd be a lockdown for the whole country. And I just wanted to have some food in case that was going to happen. The other thing going on, you know, I very much enjoy the small things in life. And in the last video, I pointed out my improvised food bowl. You know, I just cut off the bottom of a big water bottle, you know, that I bought at 7-Eleven. I was making spaghetti, you know, cooking up some spaghetti here, and while it was boiling, I suddenly realized I had no way to eat it. I had no bowls, no plates, nothing. So, you know, I went MacGyver here in my room and then cut off the bottom of this water bottle, and that's what I was using. But of course, that isn't a great idea, as a few people pointed out. If you put hot liquids in here, perhaps you're leaching toxins and carcinogens out of the plastic. I'm not generally super concerned about stuff like that, but getting a replacement bowl here in Mae Sot is a pretty easy thing. So on my way to Tesco, I stopped off at this large household goods shop that I knew about, and I walked out with, ta-da, my brand new bowl. You know, it's a regular food bowl that you would use in your regular day-to-day life in your home and in your kitchen. So I have no concerns about carcinogens or toxins coming out of here. So this is my new my new bowl for my spaghetti and other things that I'm cooking up here in my room. Well, as for the immigration policy, that's actually a really big story, but I'll try to keep it as short and concise as possible, you know, if I can manage to do that. About 10 days ago or something like that, there was a proposal from Thailand, from the Immigration Bureau here in Thailand, that would offer some relief to all the various types of foreigners that are in Thailand on a tourist visa. And they submitted this proposal to the government, and they were supposed to debate it and either approve it or do something with it. And then after I read all the articles about it and they submitted it to the government, it just vanished. I mean, it was just gone. I never heard anything about it after that. So I have no idea what happened to that proposal. It was like it never existed. It just vanished. But last weekend, a new proposal came out from the Immigration Bureau, and some of the details were posted online. You couldn't really depend on those details because, you know, they could even submit it to the government, and even if they approved it, maybe they would change some of the details before it, you know, was made official policy. But based on what I read, I was a little bit confused by it. When they were talking about giving foreigners automatic extensions on their tourist visas. And this was done basically for safety reasons. They had large crowds of people going to immigration, big crowds of 1,000 or 2,000 people in places like Bangkok, crowds as large as, 2, 3, even 500 people showing up at immigration offices in Phuket and other, large islands that are popular with foreigners. And that, of course, is a safety concern for the foreigners and for the immigration clerks and officials. You don't want that many people gathered in a tight group. And they tried to implement as many social distancing measures as they could. And they opened up new temporary immigration offices all over the place to try and reduce the crowding. But none of these measures were really doing as much as they hoped. So this new proposal was meant to prevent foreigners from having to go to any immigration office. Like, nobody would have to go to the immigration office. We would just get an automatic extension on our tourist visa. And I think most foreigners, myself included, we assumed this would mean that we would just get an automatic 30-day extension after our current visa expired. So, my visa goes until April 25th. So I thought, okay, when this proposal is passed, I will get an automatic 30-day extension starting from April 25th. And if someone else's visa expires, April 15th, they will get 30 days from April 15th. And then I assumed there would be some kind of a measure where when the state of emergency is lifted and life is going back to normal, everybody will get a grace period, like X number of days, 15 days or a month or whatever it is, to officially go to immigration now, get an official extension, clear up all the paperwork, or fly out of Thailand. So that's what I was anticipating. I think that's what everyone was anticipating. But the details of this proposal were completely different from that. I wasn't expecting this at all. The way it was proposed was that, yes, all the foreigners who fit into this or this or this category with this type of visa within these dates, they would, all of them, have their visa extended to April 30th. So everyone got the exact same extension going up until April 30th. And this kind of confused me because I'm not sure how many people this would help. My visa expires currently on April 25th. So this proposal, as it was written, would give me 5 extra days. And that really would not help me out at all. So in my case, I would probably still go to immigration and apply for an official extension and pay the fee, because that extension will give me 30 days and will take me to, May 25th or something like that. An extension to, April 30th, that's great. I'm glad that they're trying to do something, but it wouldn't really help me out that much. And I probably wouldn't try to take advantage of this policy. I would just go get my own visa extension for 30 days because that would help me out a lot more. And, if someone's visa expires on April 20th, then the April 30th extension only gives them 10 days. So they have to think, well, should I just get this 10 days automatically, or should I go to immigration and apply and get 30 days? What if your visa expired on April 15th? Now it's like 15 days automatically, or I can get 30 days if you see what I mean? I can't think how many people this policy would benefit. So I was concerned about that. And then when I was thinking about it, it occurred to me that by doing this, they've now synchronized all of the tourist visas in the whole country. Previous to that, everyone's visa expired on a different day. So out of the hundreds of thousands, I've heard as many as 500,000 foreigners are in Thailand now on a tourist visa. I don't know if it's really that high, but that's the number I heard. All of their visas are spread out over the month. So they're all going to expire on all different days, and they're evenly spread over the 30 days of any particular month. But now with this policy, everyone's visa expires on April 30th. All 500,000 of them. Bam! Your visa has expired on April 30th. And I'm not sure what the results of that will be. You know, could that be total chaos? Does everyone have to leave the country on April 30th? Or do they not all have to go in to get an extension now? All 500,000 at the same time? So that was the proposal that I read about in the newspaper, and last night I heard that the proposal was approved by the government, and then it was sent on to the Prime Minister for his signature, and then sometime after that I heard that the Prime Minister signed it and it became law. And I saw this proposal published, like the official document was posted online, but the whole thing was in Thai, and I never was able to find an English translation of it. And that's how things stood last night. So that's as far as the story went. And then I went to bed, and my idea was to wake up first thing in the morning, get online, you know, look for English translations of this document, and yeah, figure out what is going on in my life in terms of immigration and my visa here in Thailand. But as is often the case in my life, things were not quite that easy. I got all excited, took a shower, made a cup of coffee, fired up my computer, and got my phone, which I use as a hotspot for the internet, and I couldn't get on the internet. You know, I was like, what is going on? You know, because, you know, I checked on my account and it said, you know, you have no data, no internet data. Your package is empty. So I thought, well, that is really weird, because the night before I had thought ahead. I thought I was, you know, being pretty smart, and I checked and I had about 8 gigabytes of data left. And I thought, well, that'll take me through a couple of days. That's fine. But what I did realize was that data package expired at midnight. You know, that's what these big companies do to you. You know, they sell you data or phone service or whatever it is, and then legally they're allowed to put a time limit on it. This is kind of a pet peeve of mine. I've talked about it in the past. You know, I compare it to you know, going out and buying 2 liters of milk and putting it in the fridge. And then, you know, the store comes to your house and takes it away because, hey, you were supposed to drink it in 2 days. You know, if you don't drink it in 2 days, we have to take it back and you have to buy new milk. You know, of course, that's insane. And yet I think of internet data the same way. You know, I bought 8 gigabytes of data, but then they're allowed to say, well, you have to use it within 3 days or we'll just take it away, and then you have to buy more. You know, so I've never been very happy with these policies. I run into them, you know, all over the world in different ways. So right now, I have no idea what has happened. I haven't gone online yet to check for any updates or any English translations. So my idea is to feel like a little bit later, I'm going to go online and look for information about this. And then at the end of this video, I'll post an update and give you all the details of what is the official policy, what it means for me, and am I still confused or not. My guess is I'll still be pretty confused, but we'll see. So I haven't checked the internet yet, so I don't know what's going on with the immigration policy. I'll do that in a few minutes. I just had maybe 1 or 2 other quick stories to tell before I move on. I'm continuing to do kind of a roundup, YouTuber roundup of all the stranded foreigners around the world. So I've been checking in with 8 miles from home in Siargao, the delightful travelers, Michele Ponte, you know, in Bangkok, all these people, and then they all have very interesting stories to tell. But I wanted to start with a new one. Someone in the comments reminded me of a traveler who calls her channel Itchy Boots. It's a young woman from the Netherlands. I think her name is Noraly. Not sure of the pronunciation, but I'll go with Noraly, and her channel is Itchy Boots. And she travels around the world by motorcycle. So we're talking, you know, full-on hardcore expeditions. And I followed her journeys in the past, and I found them really interesting, but I wasn't aware that she had recently begun a new one. And her new trip was the classic journey from the tip of South America all the way up to Alaska with her motorcycle. I mean, a lot of people do that journey. They either start in Alaska and go down to the tip of South America, or they start in South America and go north, and that's the route that she chose. She, of course, planned it for a long time, got all the specialized gear together, got her motorcycle ready, shipped it to Argentina, and then she flew there, I think. How else would she get to Argentina? And she met up with her motorcycle, and then she began her journey north. I think she's been on this trip for about 6 months now. Spent 1 or 2 months in Argentina, 1 or 2 months in Chile, then into Bolivia. And I didn't watch any of those videos. I'm sure I'll go back now and start from the beginning of this expedition. But where I picked up her journey was in La Paz, which is the capital of Bolivia. And it's such a funny video, and so interesting to me, you know, because she was on her journey, you know, having the time of her life, and then boom, ran straight into the coronavirus situation, as we all have, you know, whatever we're doing in the world, whether you're at home or overseas, whatever's going on. For all of us, it's like our life is just following this trajectory, and then boom, it's just total change. You know, you have to rethink everything you're doing. But in her case, she started her video. She's happy and excited. It's a new day in La Paz. She decided to stay in La Paz for 1 week. She signed up for a gym membership. She's going to exercise, get in better shape, build up some more red blood cells, because she's in the Altiplano, you know, of the Andes Mountains, very high altitude, very low oxygen levels in the air. And she was feeling a little bit tired sometimes, and she just kind of wanted to build up her, you know, red blood cell count and that kind of thing. And she's going to spend a week in La Paz, make lots of videos there, ride that famous cable car, shoot videos, go exploring the city. She's talking about all of this, meets up with a local woman who's also going to the gym. They're talking about doing yoga, and everything's great, everything's wonderful. She comes out of the gym after her workout. She's chatting with some local people, and they say, "Oh, by the way, did you know that Bolivia is going into lockdown at midnight tonight?" And for her, she's like, "No, I didn't know that. That's a surprise." Next thing you know, she's back at her hotel room, packing everything up. She's on her motorcycle, and she's heading for the border with Peru. She wants to get out of Bolivia, out of La Paz, before the lockdown gets her stuck in Bolivia. And I kind of get her logic doing this, because she'd already finished her journey in Bolivia. She'd been there for, I don't know, 1 or 2 months. She'd ridden her motorcycle all the way from the south to the north. La Paz is in the far north, right on the border with Peru. So she thought, whew, if I'm going to get stuck inside a country, you know, if they're going to close the borders, you know, they might even close the land borders, I'd rather be stuck in a new country. I don't want to be stuck in Bolivia. If she knew everything that we all know now, if she knew what was going to happen in the future, you know, she might have decided to stay in La Paz. But she didn't. At that point, all she knew was that airports were closing and perhaps land borders were closing, so nobody could go in and out of the country. At that point, that was the main restriction. So she thought she could go to Peru, and she wouldn't be able to fly in or out of Peru. Nobody could, but perhaps she'd be able to travel around Peru and continue her journey, continue her expedition, continue making videos for her, you know, 400,000 YouTube subscribers. So she crosses the border into Peru, deals with everything she needs to do, gets a SIM card, gets money, gets insurance for her and her bike, gets a customs document that allows her to have her motorcycle in the country. That's all of this is valid for 60 days. And then she goes to Lake Titicaca, very famous lake in Peru and Bolivia. And they have some famous islands out in Lake Titicaca. They're made out of reeds. The local people cut down reeds, put them in the water, and they float to the bottom or sink to the bottom, and they pile more and more and more reeds until it reaches the surface of the lake, and they basically build their own islands out of reeds. I went there many years ago, and it's really a fun thing to do. Tourists take boats out to these reed islands. So she put her motorcycle in storage in the city of Puno with like a local community group. She met these guys at the dock, and they says, yeah, you can leave your motorcycle here. It'll be safe, no problem. She puts it in there, locks it up, goes to the boat, and takes like a 3 or 4 hour boat ride, visits these reed islands, and then she goes to another island, like a regular dirt and rock island, and stays at a hotel there. So she's still doing the expedition adventurer thing. And then she wakes up the next morning to the news, oh, by the way, Peru is going into lockdown. And it's not just it's not just that you can't leave the country, you won't be able to leave this island. So if you don't get off this island today, you're going to be stuck on this island for the duration of this 2-week lockdown. So she's got one chance to get off the island. One boat is leaving at 10 a.m. She gets on that boat, gets back to Puno, which is the capital city of that department of Peru. Kind of a large city, I don't know, 100, 200,000 people, I'm not exactly sure, but it's a major city for Peru. And then she has a decision to make. She knows that at midnight, wherever she is at midnight, she'll be stuck there for at least 15 days. And I don't know her reasoning, I don't know her logic for why she chose to do what she did, but she got on her motorbike, left Puno, and drove to this small little town called Lampa, I think. I'm guessing that she knew about Lampa and knew that it was a beautiful little historic town, has a big church there, a historic church. It's in the, high Andes Mountains, very beautiful region, and perhaps she thought that was a better, more interesting place to wait out the 15 days than a big city like Puno. Whatever her logic, whatever her reasoning, that's what she did. She got on her motorbike, drove to Lampa, found a place to stay there, tiny little hotel with some nice people, a nice family taking care of her. And this is where her story gets interesting, because I guess the restrictions caught up with her. I mean, as far again as she knew, travel was not allowed in Peru. The country was locked down, but you also could not travel inside Peru. You couldn't go from one city to the next. She knew that, but she still felt, I think the rules were you could go outside. I mean, there was no problem. You take the proper precautions, the mask, social distancing. All of this has also reached South America. And so she went outside and started walking, and she went up into the nearby hills because she likes the outdoors, climbed up to get a beautiful view of the town. She did that one day, and then she went out on another day to go for a walk out of town. Now, of course, there's nobody in sight. I mean, she's in the middle of the Altiplano. I mean, the nearest person to her was, I don't know, kilometers away. No one in sight as far as you can see. So she's assuming, well, this is fine. There's no risk of any virus up here. But of course, tension is running a little bit high everywhere. So she's on her walk, she's leaving the town, heading up into the hills, and some policemen on motorcycles come roaring up behind her. Hey, what are you doing? Where are you going? Let's see your passport. All these questions about who she is, where she's been, and she's having to, kind of reassure them because they hear she's from the Netherlands. And then everybody's, pulling back a little bit. Oh no, Netherlands, that's bad. That's like an epicenter. Western Europe is known as being kind of an epicenter for the virus at the moment, and people are nervous around people from Italy or Spain, France, Netherlands, places like that. And so she's trying to reassure them, don't worry. I've been in South America for 6 months. I've been in Argentina, I've been in Chile, I've been in Bolivia. I've been here the entire time since the breakout of this pandemic. I've been nowhere near the Netherlands, but that's not exactly calming people down. Next thing you know, the police are bringing her to the local hospital. She calls it a hospital. I'm assuming it's more of a clinic. I can't see this town having, a big hospital or anything. So they're bringing her there and they're explaining, okay, we have to test you to make sure you don't have the coronavirus. She's thinking, that's not such a bad thing, really. If they test me, I test negative. Now I have a piece of paper that says, I do not have the coronavirus. So if the virus does pop up in this town, somebody else brings it in, of course, they're going to suspect her. She's going to be in the crosshairs for any coronavirus-related happenings. And if she has this document that says, I've been tested and I'm negative, that will help her out immensely. But of course, all this talk of testing turned out to be just talk. She got to the clinic and they told her, well, we can take your temperature and that's pretty much all we can do. We have no tests. There may be tests in other cities in Peru, but travel ban, you can't go to any of these places. So now she can't get any kind of a document. And I think she was in the clinic for a long time, a lot of questions of, kind of questioning, getting up to the level of an interrogation perhaps. And when all this was done, the police walked her back to her hotel. They physically escorted her to her hotel. And this is the point of the whole story. I'm taking longer to tell this story than I'd planned. I wanted to go through it quickly, but it's just such a fascinating story. So she's got a police escort walking, like flanking her, this tall, blonde, European-looking woman, walking her to this hotel. And local people saw this, and they're all taking pictures with their phones. And then they posted these pictures to the local social media, their version of Facebook, and of course that set off a wave of speculation, fear, perhaps anger, who knows what, as Noraly described it, on these posts. There were a lot of angry emojis, that people were posting. Like, there's this foreigner in our midst. She brought the virus to our community. The police had to take her to the hospital. So she must be sick, right? Because she went to the hospital. Now they took her to the hotel. What's going on? And all this speculation in social media. So now, I don't think anything really happened. It's not like the townspeople came at her hotel with, torches and pitchforks like the villagers coming after Frankenstein's monster or anything. They're not beating on the door and shouting, bring out the foreigner. Nothing like that happened, but she sensed some tension in the town. And maybe a lot of that came from monitoring, just social media, what was going on in the local social media. And she was feeling unwelcome, to put it mildly. And that meant she was pretty much locked inside. She was now pretty much unable to go outside. She could not go out the front door of her hotel. And I don't think she was planning on that, when she chose to ride her motorcycle from Puno to this little town. She was not expecting to be under, room arrest, kind of like I have kind of a voluntary room arrest going on here, and I'm in quite a large, comfortable room, and I have a nice city around me where I can go to 7-Eleven and get more data. I can go to the ATM and get money. I can do all these things. Noraly, she's in this town. There's no ATMs there. She's running out of cash. There's no Wi-Fi in her hotel. I think it probably was a struggle for her to get new data on her phone because she can't go outside. You know, she has to get someone else to get the data for her. On the positive side, the family in this hotel were taking very good care of her. You know, they're preparing meals for her. But even the way she described that was kind of interesting because they're preparing the meal in the kitchen, and then they would bring the food to the dining room, put it down, and then they would leave the room, and only when they had exited the room, you know, could she come in and eat by herself, you know, total isolation. And then she could see the family over there in the kitchen and kind of wave at them, but they had to be in separate rooms. And then when she's finished her meal, she can go up to her room again, and they can come out and clear the plates. You know, so even this wonderful family that was doing so much for her, you know, they couldn't be in the same room at the same time. And my take on Noraly, you know, I think she's a bit of a people person. She likes people around her. She wants to be social. She wants to be out there in the community. And this was a, you know, a difficult time for her. So for Itchy Boots in Lampa, life got pretty serious pretty fast. You know, she really was not anticipating this kind of situation. I think when she drove her motorcycle there, it was more of a, okay, you know, 15 days, I'm going to be stuck in this one town. You know, I'm on an adventure, I'm on an expedition, I have subscribers on YouTube wanting to see what I'm up to, so let's go to this beautiful historic town. We'll be there for 2 weeks, you know, make lots of videos about the, you know, the lockdown. So, yeah, she was not expecting to be inside this hotel room for total isolation. Plus, of course, there were instant rumors and stories and eventual confirmation that this is going to go on much longer than 15 days. It's not like at the end of 15 days, the doors open, the birds and the butterflies are out chirping and fluttering around, and she can get on her motorcycle and start going. You know, this is going to go on for weeks. The lockdown, she's going to be stuck in this town for much longer than 15 days. And as I said, you know, running out of money, running out of cash, running out of everything. So now she started thinking seriously of, okay, what are my options here? And this is where her story changes. And of course, she's been in contact with the Dutch embassy, a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls going back and forth. There's starting to be talk of a repatriation flight leaving from Lima back to Amsterdam. And she's starting to think, you know, well, I wanted to stay here, you know. She's in a similar situation to me and a lot of other people that I'm aware of, in that, sure, the Netherlands is her home country, but she doesn't have a home there. There's no apartment or house waiting for her. So, okay, I can fly to Amsterdam and now I'm home, but really she wouldn't be home at all, because her home is where her motorcycle is. That is her home. Wherever her motorcycle is, that's where her home is. And that's the case for, you know, 8 miles from home in Siargao. Their most recent video was about the possibility of a repatriation flight leaving from Siargao and taking them all the way back to the UK. And there was a lot of discussion amongst them, that whole family, about should we take advantage of this flight. And if you go watch their videos, you can see, you know, what they eventually decided to do. It's quite an interesting story. And if you're jonesing for beautiful sunsets, 8 miles from home have got you covered with those amazing Filipino sunsets. Go check those out. So yeah, Noraly is now in the middle of all these discussions about repatriation flights out of Lima. And then, of course, you have to think, well, Lima is far away. I mean, she just crossed the border from La Paz, into Peru. So she's at the southern tip of Peru, and Lima is way, way up there, at least 2 days of travel away in a country that's underneath a complete travel ban. Nobody really can go anywhere normally. So that's where I will leave her story. I've watched her videos beyond that point, so I know everything that happened to her, and all kinds of interesting things occurred, so I really recommend checking out Itchy Boots and following her story. Yeah, I think you'll enjoy them quite a bit. One more quick story before I dive into the internet and find out what is going on with the new immigration policy. A few days ago, I talked about the Italian Michele Ponte, who's in Bangkok. He's had some things going on in his life too, and he's made a video about it. But the thumbnail sketch is that he was staying in a really nice condo with a foreigner friend that he made, like a fellow YouTuber, and he was in a very nice situation. But he decided to move out of that condo and then move into a regular kind of backpacker hostel in Bangkok. And the reason for doing this, why he moved out of the condo and why he's in this undisclosed hostel now, you know, he's not telling anyone where he is. He's kind of taken self-isolation to the next level. Kind of an interesting story. So, you know, go check out Michele Ponte's video, and I'll let him tell you in his own words, you know, what's been going on in his life. But me being me, one thing about Michele's video really jumped out at me. You know, he moved from a very nice condo, a very nice living situation, into what I think of as a quite typical backpacker hostel in Bangkok. And I've had a fair amount of experience with these places, you know, so I just had to smile when I saw him moving into his room. You know, he checked in at the front desk, and then the clerk, who was from the Philippines actually, who was working there, brought him up to his room. And to get to his room, you know, it was like going through a maze of stairwell after stairwell after stairwell, down this narrow hallway, down this hallway, up more stairs, turn right, up more stairs. And they just kept climbing and climbing and climbing. And as often happens, they climbed up these stairs, went down a hallway, and then they went down some stairs and then down another little hallway until they got to this little cul-de-sac where you can barely fit in, you know, your shoulders can barely fit into the hallway, and then there's all these doors all around, and they open the door, and here, you know, here is your room. And I felt so bad for Michele, because I know exactly what these places are like. It's just you know, all those stairs, you wonder, where in the world is this guy taking me? And it struck me as particularly odd because as far as I know, he was the only person staying at this entire hostel. It was completely empty except for Michele. All the rooms are empty. So you'd think they might give him a room on the first floor. You know, why not? The whole place is empty. You stay here. But no, they took him up to the absolute top floor, to the room in the farthest, darkest back corner of the hostel. And I guess that was probably the lowest budget room. I think Michele was opting for the, you know, low budget option. But still, it just struck me as funny because I've been in that situation so many times myself, and it just made me smile to see him going up and up and up those stairs and down the stairs and around the hallways, and you're wondering, where are these people taking me? You know, where am I going to end up? And of course, his room was a typical low-budget room with a, you know, bunk bed, no windows of any kind, no access to the outside world. A pretty, you know, fairly unpleasant situation for him to find himself in. You know, so yeah, the stories of stranded foreigners. But anyway, that's it for the update. I'm going to turn off the camera, fire up the internet, find out what is going on in this crazy world of tourist visa extensions, and then I'll let you know what I think of it all. Am I still as confused as I was last night? My guess is I'll be even more confused, but who knows? Maybe maybe it will all make sense. I'll let you know in a second. Okay, am I still confused? Well, yes, mainly confused, and no. All the details that I talked about earlier, how the extension is the same for everyone and it just goes till April 30th, that is the official policy that they've signed into law. And from the news articles I'm seeing, it has had the desired effect. I've seen statements that the crowds at immigration offices have dropped by 70%. So in terms of what they were trying to accomplish, you know, they did it. You know, there are far fewer foreigners going to immigration offices than before. And I guess that will continue over the month of April until we reach April 30th. And of course, what happens on April 30th, I have no idea. In my head, I kind of see it as like a doomsday clock now, you know, counting down to April 30th, and then bang, you know, total chaos and confusion. But my confusion now stems mainly from how little information there is about this policy. I'm assuming the official version that's out there on the books is much more detailed and has lots more information in it, because what has been published in English is really simple. Like, it's basically 3 sentences that says, you know, okay, foreigners with a tourist visa that's expiring after March 26th, you all get a automatic extension up until April 30th. And you don't have to pay the fine. The usual overstay fine is 500 baht per day. And they're saying, okay, we're not going to charge you for that. Don't worry about any overstay fines. And that's all well and good, but when I read those 3 sentences, I automatically have 20 questions about the fine details, because everyone is in a very unique and specific situation. And I have a lot of questions. You know, just for example, I'm assuming that in the official document, there is some detail about what happens after April 30th. I saw some people saying that if the state of emergency is extended beyond April 30th into May, then everyone will get another automatic 30-day extension until the end of May. And that's what I'm reading. That's what people are saying, but I don't see that language anywhere in the published official documents. You know, the government has put out statements, and they've even put out these graphics, you know, like a flow chart. You know, if you fall into this category, then has an arrow to the next box. You know, if you are in this group or this group, you know, you can follow the arrow all the way through to the end, you know, and it's a very, you know, fancy looking document, but none of that information is included even in these infographics, as they call them. So again, I'm assuming there's a lot more detail, a lot more information out there in the official policy, but from what I'm seeing, I still have a lot of questions. And I'm a little bit confused because when you compare all the different English translations that the government, the Immigration Bureau, has officially released, they're not all the same. Like, some have information that the other releases don't have, you know? So that kind of leads to a little bit of confusion. The first thing I read said nothing about what happens when the state of emergency ends. You know, for example, if the state of emergency ends on April 30th, then what? Everyone's visa expires on that date, and then what is our situation at that point when the government lifts the state of emergency? The first documents I saw said nothing about that. But then later on, another document was released, and it said something like, when the state of emergency is lifted and things go back to normal, foreigners have to go to immigration and get an official extension or leave the country within the specified period. It says that, but of course it does not say what that period is. You know, what is the specified period? You know, they've left that completely open. Is it, you know, 2 days? Is it a week? Is it 2 weeks? Is it a month? You know, we really don't know. So for me as an individual trying to decide what to do, I mean, I would normally base my decision on all the fine print, you know, all the details of this policy, what it means to me. But there's so much information left out of this policy and so many details that are not confirmed yet that I don't really know what would be the best thing to do. Anyway, I think the basic idea for me is I'm going to move forward as if I am going to go to the immigration office here in Mae Sot and apply for an extension and pay the fee. And I think they require a bunch of different documents for that, which again, that strikes me as kind of funny too, because for the automatic extension, nothing, you know, you just get it, you know, everyone gets it, no one has to do anything. But the way it stands now, if you go to the immigration office and apply for an extension, you know, you need a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, I've seen articles saying you need, you know, the letter from your embassy, you need photographs of where you're staying, like you have to take selfies of yourself in all the rooms of your residence. You need a copy of your lease and contract. Even your landlord or the hotel owner has to come with you to immigration for an interview. Even they're going to do a home visit. So within 14 days of your application, they have to come to your hotel and physically check on you to make sure you are staying where you said you're staying. I mean, it's a whole long raft of requirements, a lot of documentation and a lot of hoops to jump through. And whether all of that is true or not, I have no idea. These are just things I'm reading online, and who knows whether it's true or not. You just never know until you go to the office. But it strikes me as funny that on the one hand, you've got the automatic extension, you don't have to do anything. But now still, if you actually go to the office, you know, you're talking about a major process with a lot of documents and paying 1,900 baht. So getting the, you know, automatic extension is a very attractive option. But as I said, at the moment, the automatic extension only gives me 5 extra days to play with. The official extension gives me 30 days. So I'm going to move forward as if I'm going to apply for this 30-day extension and just sort of see what happens. Maybe as we get closer to the end of April, the situation will become clearer. So that is it. That is the update from Mae Sot and what's going on here. Today, of course, I think the day is just going to continue as normal. My entertainment for the day will be a couple more episodes of the TV show Succession. That's what I'm watching right now. Someone in the comments suggested this show to me, and I started watching it, and it's really, really good. So thank you for the suggestion. I mean, the characters in the show Succession, they're horrible. I mean, what a horrible, horrible bunch of people. I mean, they're just awful. So you can't really like anyone in the show as individuals, but the show itself is very high quality. You know, it's very entertaining. And I think a new episode of Devs is coming out, or it should be out already. And I'm looking forward to see where that story is going. So that is going to be my day today after I upload this video. So that's it for now, and I'll see you in the next video from Mae Sot. One last note, a technical one for anyone out there who has a technical mind or is curious about these things. All of this that I shot this morning, I did not shoot with my GoPro because, yeah, my GoPro is giving me a lot of trouble. I tried using it, and within minutes it overheated and shut down. And not only that, I've noticed that if you record long videos on the GoPro, and the file size gets too large, it splits the file into multiple files. But instead of numbering them in order, you know, it's like having file 201, 202, 203, as it splits the file, it takes the split file segments and gives them bizarre numbers that don't mean anything to me, and they end up scattered all over the place. I have no idea why it does that. So when I used this the other day and I had like large video files, I was like, what the heck is going on? I kept thinking that I accidentally deleted large parts of video because I would just cut things off right in the middle. The video would just stop. I was like, what the heck? Where's the rest of the video? But it turns out the rest of the video was in these other overflow files that ended up with weird file numbers, and they're all over the place, and I got to track them down. And it's like, that's not that's not very good. But it was mainly the overheating. Like it just overheated so fast inside its Ulanzi case. It just became frustrating to use. Plus, battery life is so short in these things. So I'm just constantly changing the battery, changing the battery, changing the battery. So with all that happening, I switched over to my Panasonic Lumix G85. And that's what I used to shoot this video this morning. So if it looks different or sounds different and you're wondering, there's something weird going on, that's the reason.